You are in front of a person who's done more time in a federal penitentiary than you have, been in more street fights than you have. You pull that blade out, he will have that thing shoved in one of your orifices so fast you won't even know what happened. You won't even see it.
I'm Ryan Gresham, and this is Gun Talk Nation. This Gun Talk Nation is brought to you by Ruger, B5 Systems, SDS Imports, Stag Arms, Range Ready, SecureIt, Vortex, Hodgdon, and Silencer Central. Hey, welcome into Gun Talk Nation. Today on Gun Talk Nation, we've got Steve Tarani with us, and I'm going to read a little bio from Steve because I think it's important to understand background of who we're talking about here. Steve Tarani has served in the United States Defense, law enforcement, intelligence communities for over 30 years as a respected subject matter expert, service provider in protection, firearms, and defensive tactics to numerous high and low-profile federal agencies. Sworn in the states of California and Nevada, Tarani is a former full-time CIA Protective Programs employee and was formerly on staff at the U.S. Department of Energy, National Security Institute, Security Force Training Department, Kirkland Air Force Base, New Mexico, served on the POTUS 45 pre-election executive protection detail, and is DOD and FLETC certified firearms instructor. Been on the staff at Gunsight for over 20 years, formerly an adjunct instructor for the SIG Arms Academy up there in New Hampshire. So we've had Steve down here for a Hands to Guns class with Max Michelle. So Steve, welcome in. Wanted to talk to you and catch up with you, man. How you doing?
Good, Ryan. Thank you for having me on the show. Good to be here.
Yeah, thanks, man. So I'm going to start off by telling you something that's kind of funny, okay? So we were going through, when you guys did your Hands to Guns class, which is the coolest thing, we'll talk more about it as we get into the show. A little bit of the hands-on training that Steve does, and you can correct me later when I screw this up, but there's some knife work, right? Some defensive knife stuff, some hand-to-hand stuff, and then Max does his pistol magic. But we filmed it, and we were going through all the footage, and we were making a cool video for it to put it out there on our socials, and we're actually pulling little clips and putting them on YouTube as a little short clip. And it was cracking me up, Steve, and I'm sure you've probably run into this because I don't know if you know, but there are a lot of internet experts out there who like to criticize stuff they see on the internet, and they don't know what they're watching or who they're watching do it. And I was surprised this video got like 10,000 views, and I was surprised at the comments because I thought we'd post this cool video of you doing your thing, very quick defensive knife work that most people were like, holy crap, that's pretty cool. I mean, we had comments like, what in the name of Steven Seagal is this absolute dead end of an idea? This is how you get shot 101. Or like practicing the art of bullshito, which I didn't know that was an ancient art. But I think that there certainly are BS trainers online. And I was like, you guys need to Google Steve Tarani. Like, you don't know what you're talking about. Like, this guy actually knows what he's talking about. Have you run into that from people going, what the hell is this? What does this guy know?
Sure. All the time. Yeah. Going back, many years, I've been in the industry 35 years, long time, right? And, you can imagine I work in the DOD arena, and in my younger days got challenged all the time. So, in this industry, you either are chewed up and spit out your first 2 weeks on the job, or you're still around 3 decades later.
Yeah, that's a good point. You're talking about people challenging you when you show up, especially sort of the higher tier folks. Sometimes want to vet who the hell they brought in to train them, right? I remember talking to one guy who was a good trainer, and he knew a lot of things, and he could tell when he walked into a room and there's a group of a dozen guys going, who the hell is this guy? And they're going to do some mat work. And he would said, I'd pick out the biggest, toughest dude and choke him out. And then they would all be willing to listen to me now.
right? That's very, very common. Yeah. So I still to this day service three-letter agency contracts and things like that. So I believe me, have any having any interaction with a 12-year-old keyboard commando, just water off a duck to me, man.
Yeah, it was just funny. I just at first I was going, what the hell are they talking about? Is as it tends to do with like YouTube commenters or any social media commenters, I'll have about a 5 second like kind of irritated reaction, and then I just kind of start laughing because I realize they don't know what the heck they're talking about anyway. Steve, how did you get into this? Because to watch you do your thing, you're very skilled, and in particular, I always think of you as a knife guy. I know you do other things, you do hand to hand stuff, you do guns, but how did you get into this, and how does one become more than proficient? I mean, very very proficient with this.
I have a very strong base in martial arts. You've seen my website. If you need a sleep aid at any time, you can access that. uh, Lots and lots of years. I went full time, something like 60 to 80 hours a week. It's all I did, full time martial arts from I don't know how many years, well over 10, 12 years. And then after that, I was invited by my masters to go with them overseas and study with their teachers once I was, reached a level of proficiency. So I was in Japan, studying in Japan and Tokyo at the Hambu Dojo there. I was in the Philippines, the Visayan Islands, studying with masters there. West Java, Jawa Barat, places like that, studying with the masters there. So I was full immersion, during that era. Worked as a deputy for a short time after that, and then was hired as a contractor because of my time overseas and working with various cultures, indigenous peoples, and my skill set was very particular in improvised weapons, edge weapons, impact weapons, flexible weapons, etc. And then I was hired by various three-letter agencies as a contractor, trained and did work overseas for quite a bit of time. Then I was eventually hired by CIA as a contractor and then as a full-time employee. And I was stationed overseas at various times. And, uh, that's where my background came from.
Gotcha. Okay. We think, I mean, obviously this, this show's called Gun Talk Nation. We think about guns a lot, but I think that our audience is always interested in other tools and just a preparedness mindset. You said you've trained a lot of those three-letter agencies, and I think even amongst those, we think of guns, right? They're carrying pistols, maybe concealed, low profile, or if you're a soldier, you're carrying a rifle out there, slung. What do you think? What percentage actually use those other types of weapons, improvised or edged? I mean, and are they proficient with it? Is it something that a civilian can become proficient with?
Sure. Yeah. Let me go back to the first part of your question. The three-letter agencies and DoD as well. You talk about high profile. Yeah, you got helmets, you got body armor. You want a rifle. It's for the application of a high-profile operation. But then, that's for a particular set of circumstances and situation. You've got lower profile. Secret Service, for example, with suits, business suits, but it's lower profile, but they still have access to weapons. And then there's even a lower profile than that. So we have high profile, low profile, and no profile. There are situations where you have operators in the field where they are specifically told by the U.S. State Department that they cannot have a firearm in the field. So
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot of those folks. You don't see it in the news. It's not glamorous. So it's not in the movies. It's not on TV. But there's a lot of folks out there who are doing, important work overseas that are not allowed to have a long gun or any firearm whatsoever. So do they still need to have some sort of a recourse for reactive measures? Yes, they do. They can't use a firearm. So what do you got? In some countries, you can't even have an edged weapon,
Mm-hmm.
or something you would consider an edged weapon, like a knife or machete or something like that. But there are improvised edge weapons, scissors, broken piece of glass, even your credit card in your pocket can be used, things like that. You have improvised impact weapons all around you. You have flexible weapons. The cord on the mic in front of you can be used as a weapon. So if you have the training and the mindset to use the series of available categories of improvised weapons, that is edged, impact, and flexible, you've got some skills. And you can, if needed, better to have and not need than to need and not have.
Do you have a favorite or a suggested option when it comes to, you know, thinking about like a civilian traveling overseas and you can't carry a knife, you can't carry a gun?
Well, I mean, it depends on, where are you going? What are you doing? What are the laws? What are you allowed to carry? Things like that. And it really comes down to not so much, I get this a lot, especially in the gun world, it's, well, which is the best gun? Well,
I
it's
just
not
did
the,
it. Damn it. I just did that. It's not the tool. It's the
it's not
person,
the
right?
tool, it's the user, right? Right. So same
Uh
thing in the hard skills. I mean, yeah, you should be, in my humble opinion, you should be just as proficient with a rifle as a shotgun, as a pistol. They all should be tools for you if needed and when needed.
I was at EWA, the conference that's like the SHOT Show of
Hmm.
Europe,
Yeah.
for those
Yeah.
listening. And I was listening to defensive knife kind of guy. And one thing he mentioned that kind of made sense to me, I don't know, I'd love your take on it, is he was saying, hey, we're here in Germany and you're limited in what you can do and what you can carry. And he was suggesting that I guess, quote unquote, tactical pins are a nice option. You can stick it in a sport coat or whatever. Obviously, you kind of have to know what the heck to do with it. But as far as like traveling overseas or countries or non-permissive environments, he liked that as an option.
Yeah, so you can go online. There's a tremendous variety of those types of pens that are available, ranging from anything that's a piece of plastic, 22-cent Bic ballpoint, all the way up to something that looks like it came out of a Star Wars movie. So, and then everything in between. So, of course, at what point during, along the gamut, will you pick up interest from TSA? When it starts to look like something that looks like a weapon. That's
Yeah.
when TSA is going to start paying attention. So I don't disagree. Having something in your hand is more effective than having nothing in your hand, of course. However, you should be aware of, uh, as we said earlier, if it looks like a weapon and can be used as a weapon, it's going to be perceived as a weapon and taken away from you by TSA or local law enforcement.
Steve, I had a TSA one time because I do usually fly with those amongst my pins. And I had, it's only happened once, but I had him stop and pull my bag. Is this your bag? We did that whole thing of opening up the bag, and he pulls it out and he said, "What is this?" I said, "It's a pin." And he goes, "Is this one of those tactical pins?" I said, "What's a tactical pin?" He goes, "You could stab somebody. You could take down a plane with this." And I said, "Are you serious?" He goes, "Well, you can't fly with this." And he took it, and it's a $50 pin. I was like, whatever. I've been flying with for 5 years, and then I didn't get in trouble or anything, because it really was a pin. I mean, it wasn't one of those real pointy ninja ones. But I thought that was kind of funny. I could take down a plane with it. I guess I don't know. You could take down
Yeah.
a plane with a box cutter too. But I'm just saying.
Yeah, yeah, it's been done.
I have
So
a I
one
have
of
a
the
friend who also, I don't know if they'll still do it, but he used to, on the plane when they came around for drinks, he would ask for an unopened can of Coke or some sort of soda. An unopened can is a pretty good improvised instrument, right?
impact weapon, right?
Yeah.
Right. I was on a trip one time, walking on a plane, and I walked past this woman who had her hair up in a bun, and she had two. Uh, they looked like chopsticks that were in the bun,
Right.
and they were made out of aluminum, and they had rubber handles. And I'm looking at her. There was no English spoken here at all.
Yeah.
I just looked at her. She looked at me like, Really? They let you on with those in your hair? And she smiled. Yeah, they did. I was like, wow, good for you.
See, you just need to grow your hair out, Steve.
Right.
Oh man. Well, Steve, after I'm gonna take a quick break. After this, I want to hear more about hands to guns and the type of training you're doing. B5 Systems firearms accessories, different parts for your gun. They have different stocks, they have different grips, they have cheek pieces, they have tools, they have handguards, but probably the stocks is where they're most known for what they do. They have the SOP mod government issue, the enhanced SOP mod stock, the Bravo C stock. They also have the collapsible precision stocks in short, medium, and long. Those are probably ones you're going to want to take a look at over at b5systems.com. Ruger, one of the popular ones, one of the kind of cool, fun ones they're doing is the Ruger LC Charger. It's chambered in 5.7 by 28, low recoiling cartridge available in an array of options for target shooting, small game, personal defense. It's kind of a large format pistol, and you kind of have to see it to understand it, but it's a 10.3-inch barrel. So let that sink in for a second. Yes, it's a threaded barrel. Yes, they have a CNC milled handguard that works with M-LOK, full-length pick rail on top for optics. Just a fun, cool gun. The whole thing only weighs 66 ounces. So go check it out over at Ruger.com. SecureItGunStorage.com. We talk about SecureIt because they make just really cool products, and we have a bunch of them here. We have the lockers, we have some of their agile safes, and when people come into Gun Talk headquarters, we often get that question of like, ooh, what's these? They're all stacked up, and it's like a cool wall of storage for your guns and your gear, but they do a good job of providing a lot of different options for storing your goods, gun walls, accessories, and you can kind of customize the configuration inside to really maximize the space for what you want it to work for. So you can learn more over at SecureItGunStorage.com. Vortex Optics. At this point, who doesn't know Vortex Optics? They make rifle scopes, they make binos, they make rangefinders, they make a bunch of different stuff. One of their new lines is the Viper HD family, and I'm looking at the 2 to 10 optic because it just looks like a scope you could just do pretty much everything with. Dead hold BDC MOA reticle with a 30 millimeter tube. When success rides on the perfect shot, rely on the exceptional versatility and optical performance of the Viper HD. From big game to predators, there's a proven model for every hunting application. Each member of the Viper HD family delivers outstanding image clarity, resolution, and sharpness to ensure your target comes into view with sharp detail. Lots of different size scopes here, different magnifications. You can learn more over at vortexoptics.com. So, Steve, these days, I know you're doing a lot of training, and we did the Max Michel, Steve Tarani Hands to Guns class here last year, and we're offering it again. It's on the Range Ready website, rangereadystudios.com. As people are listening to this, they can go check it out. But how did this come about, and what are the types of things that people could expect to learn in something like this?
Sure. First part of your question, how did it come about? Back in the, I'm going to age myself here, back in the 80s and 90s in law enforcement and in certain components of DOD, you had, training on the range. This is where we do all of our live fire square range training. And then you went to the DT room, and this is where you did all your defensive tactics. So in those days, the world of defensive tactics and the world of square range training there was no crossing over at all. So that was the origins of it. Here you are trained to use a gun, and here you are trained to use a non-ballistic weapon. But what's the crossover? There wasn't any. So this class originated as a response to that. Hey, it's the same person that is using the gun is going to be using a baton or something like that. So that's the origins of this class. And over the years, the different agencies I've worked with have demanded more of an emphasis on the transition piece, because if you look at percentage wise, how many times you go to guns versus how many times you put hands on, which one's greater. So,
well, it probably should be more hands than the guns.
Right. right.
Unless
But
you're
but
Las
but
Vegas PD, I think. I'm
then
sure.
the, but then the transition, there's really nothing or very little in that area. Nowadays it's different. The agencies have caught up with it, and I've helped develop POIs, programs of instruction for that, and we're good now. But in the civilian community, there really isn't that much available for it, and that's what brings us to modern day. Those shooters who are training for their protection, the protection of their family, their protectees, especially from a protective standpoint. How do you move with another human being with a gun out? What do you do when you need to go from hands to guns? There is a method. I'm sure you know this from the firearms training piece. Is there's efficiencies that you have. Ask Max about efficiencies, right? So,
Hmm.
finding your efficiencies going from hands, and what does it take to go hands on, and then transition from the hands on safely and at the right time to go to guns if you need to.
Yeah. Um, what kind of stuff do they learn? What do they expect as far as, do they have to have, and also do they have to have experience in hand to hand stuff, or doing any edged weapon stuff?
They do not have to have any experience with the hand to hand stuff. However, when it comes to Max's part of the class, it's probably not going to be the best if you just are putting a gun in your hand for the very first time.
Yeah.
Max, he goes into overdrive in the first hour. So
it's it's hard
you got to
it's
kind of,
hard for him to slow down, and
it is. And I wouldn't walk into that class unless you had a good, solid, at least minimally the shooting fundamentals.
also I would think that it would be really helpful to be physically capable to do this kind of stuff. There's a lot of movement going on with this.
There is, sorry about that. There is, you don't have to be an athlete in any way to deal to have to be able to do the techniques. But there is light physicality. There is some physical contact. And like I said, we had some folks that were injured. They had a bad knee or something like that. And we said,
Hmm.
hey, if this is too much, you can just sit this one out, or go a little slower with your partner or something like that.
Well, also, I mean, if you are like, if it's one thing if you don't want people to get injured, but if you do deal with, you've got a bum knee or hip or whatever, you do kind of have to figure out how to manage that, right? In
Right.
those real life
Right.
situations.
We do.
Go ahead,
We
Steve.
do have people. We do have people who come to the class who are, and we had a guy in our class 2 weeks ago. He was 77 years old, had a really bad knee, but he wanted to train because, hey, I'm a 77-year-old guy. I got a bad knee, and this is what I got. So,
Yeah,
kudos to him for working through it and figuring out what he can and can't do in real world application.
that's cool. I got a question that may be a little bit off the wall, but it's something I feel like I'm hearing more about lately. Is what's your thought on pepper spray as another option?
Yeah. So it is utilized by law enforcement, utilized by DoD, utilized by protective services. There are international laws in the maritime community, you can't have a firearm. So, that's used a lot in the maritime community as well. Very effective, especially the ones where the pepper balls, the
Oh,
ballistic
sure.
versions, those are very effective. Um, you know, you certainly don't want to get smacked in the face with one of those. It'll get your attention. But
Yeah,
as opposed to having nothing, having that as opposed to no other option, I would recommend it as well.
I've kind of come around. It wasn't something I had thought much about, but I've come around to it as for just civilians, even when, because I always thought, it's a thing for, give it to your wife because she doesn't carry a gun or something like that. But there are a lot of places where you can't carry a gun, um, or maybe it's, I don't know, you're going on a jog and you don't. I mean, yeah, I know you could fanny pack it, you could belly band it. There's a lot of things you could do, but as a really easy, it's an option that's somewhere between a gun and strong words.
Right? Yeah, no, it's a valid option. most law enforcement have that option as a use of force option as well.
You know that Silencer Central makes it easy to buy silencers, but they also have their whole line of Banish suppressors, and the newest one is the Banish Speed K TI. TI for titanium. Extremely lightweight and compact. This is a really cool ultra compact 223 556 dedicated silencer. Weighs only 8.6 ounces. It's 4 inches long, and it has controlled flow technology. We have used this on the range. We've been impressed at how light it is. Doesn't change the weight and balance of the gun, and also still very quiet. The Banish Speed K TI from Silencer Central. Military Armament Corporation, MAC. They make a lot of different kind of reproduction guns. The one that's really hot right now is the MAC 5 pistol. MAC 5 pistol, as in the MP5. Yeah, the MP5 from a different gun company, but this is actually made on a lot of the same tooling. You'll have to look it up. Arguably one of the most iconic firearms of the modern era, and they've done a really nice job with this. I mean, it's roller delayed blowback action. It comes with two 30-round magazines, the cleaning kit, and a lot of true and accurate features like a tri-lug flash hider, trigger lock, all that stuff. So go check them out, millarmamentcorp.com for the MAC 5 pistol. RangeReadyStudios.com is where you go to find out about our classes that we're putting on here at the Gun Talk headquarters. And we've got a couple that are sold out recently, but we have more coming. So what you need to do is go over there, sign up for the email alerts, and you'll be the first to find out about our new class schedule coming in the fall. RangeReadyStudios.com. Hodgdon, they're the gunpowder people. And one of the ones that people really like is Hodgdon CFE BLK, CFE Black, optimized for 300 AAC blackout subsonic loads, but it's also ideal for the 17 Hornet, 7.62 by 39, 221 Fireball. So you have some options on things that you can load with this powder. One of the cool things about this, the CFE contains the copper fouling eraser ingredient, originally used in military propellant, which greatly deters copper fouling and contributes to longer periods of top accuracy with less barrel cleaning time. We like this. Go check them out over at Hodgdon.com. Aero Precision, known for helping you do gun builds, especially AR-15s, and they're still knocking out their monthly limited edition builder sets. It's going to stand out at the range among your family and friends when you're shooting. You got to go check out their builder sets, and even if you miss out on this one, the next one's going to be really cool because every single month I'm like, oh wow, that's really cool too. You can learn more over at aeroprecisionusa.com. So Steve, a lot of people who carry a gun on the daily as they're just concealed carry citizen kind of guy or gal, I think a lot of them, most of them, will carry a knife on them, right? Probably it's more of like a opening boxes type of knife. But I think if you're defensive minded, people listening to this show are, you think, oh, well, I also have this knife that's an option. But what would you tell someone, your buddy at a barbecue, who's like, yeah, I got a knife on me just in case, like, but they've never done any training. I mean, how much is it the training? How much is it your folder buck knife is not maybe the right tool? I'd love to get your thoughts if there's. I know that the best option is come train with me for several days, but if they're thinking this is a secondary or tertiary thing, what are some like quickie pro tips for those listening?
Okay, so I get asked this question a lot. Imagine yourself in a situation where you have zero training with your pocket knife, none, zero. You've seen something in a movie, maybe that's about it. And you are in front of a person who's done more time in a federal penitentiary than you have, been in more street fights than you have. You pull that blade out, he will have that thing shoved in one of your orifices so fast you won't even know what happened. You won't even see it. So I would recommend either getting training or just abandon the idea of utilizing something you don't have the skills behind it.
All right. I like it. Candid response. You're going to end up with your knife in an orifice, which is never, there's not a good option there. There's no
Yeah.
orifice that's a good one.
Less than optimal. Yes, sir. So
Steve,
we get a lot of this. What would you do if this? What would you do if that? It depends on your situation, where you are, how many of them are there, how many of you are there. Are you with your family? What are your options? It's always better to move off that X and create space and stay mobile than it is to stand your ground when it's one against, five or something like that. And especially if they're armed, you just have to assume they're armed nowadays. You just have to make that assumption.
you have to challenge yourself to imagine things going poorly, because a lot of people imagine things going so well. I'm going to do this and they're going to do this, and then the cops are going to come and give me high fives. And thinking through all that stuff of maybe the option is to run or back away. And I know that you want to be a prepared individual and maybe you own a gun and have a knife and all this stuff. But I mean, thinking through that stuff is important, huh, Steve?
Absolutely. In fact, there's a precursor when you are forced back on your heels to react to a gun in your face or a knife in your throat or something like that. That means you are reacting to a scenario. I'm going to throw in a cheap plug for my program, Preventive Defense or Prefense. There are, on the scale of 0 to 100, between 90 and 100 is your response time and your response options. From 0 to 90 is your proactive measures. What are those 0 through 90? There's 90% of a real world scenario you can solve using your most powerful weapon and never need to use your hard skills. That's what I would spend my time on for those people who are not trained, don't want to be trained, don't have the time or inclination for the hard skills training. Then go get soft skills training. Get online, take a few courses. Get yourself trained in the soft skills so you can solve the tactical problem without needing to be reactive.
And that's a great point, Steve, a great point. Something that anyone can learn. Anyone. Your 15-year-old daughter, your 80-year-old grandma, these are things that anyone can get better at. And we're just so used to going about our day and assuming everything's wonderful, and normally it is. And you probably live in an area where nothing ever happens. Bad things don't happen. It's kind of our joke with me and Chris Serino. It's like nothing ever happens. It's all fine until it does, until something does happen.
Right.
I mean, what are some of those things that you share with people as far as the soft skills that prevention, pre-defense, pre-defense?
It's called preventive defense or prefense, Prefense. In fact, the website myprefense, myprefense, myprefense.com is a tremendous repository of information that's available. I've also written, I'm a published author. I've written a couple of books on it as well. You can go online and look at some of that. But there's a lot available. There's Jason Riley, Left of Bang. There's quite a few references out there that you can access. A lot of it's free online and YouTube, stuff like that. In fact, I'll be having things come out here in late September-ish. On my YouTube, I'll have a bunch of that preventive measures that will be available at no cost as well.
That's awesome. That's great. I love it. And if you have no training with a knife and you don't want to get stabbed with your own knife, maybe a prefense would help you get there.
Sure, and it doesn't have to be my material. It can be anything that has to do with preparing you to be able to hear it, see it, smell it coming. Your three options are to avoid a threat, mitigate a threat, or defend against the threat. The A answer is to avoid.
Absolutely. This is awesome. Steve, thanks for being with us today. This has been great.
My pleasure. Ryan, good to see you again. And I'm looking forward to getting out there with Max and getting some good training at Range Ready.
It's going to be awesome, you guys. Yeah, if you're interested to train with Steve and Max, go check it out on the website, rangereadystudios.com. We've got that class in the fall. It's beautiful weather. It's in October. You get some hands-on training, some gun training, and probably a bunch of stuff that's going to improve your skills and help you be more safe. Steve, always a pleasure, man. We'll see you soon.
Same here, Ryan. Stay safe out there.
All right, guys, that's it for us. We'll see you next time on Gun Talk Nation.